Welcome everyone to today's webinar, brought to you by Pax Christi International's Catholic Nonviolence Initiative. My name is Judy Code. I serve as the coordinator of the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative. We are so grateful you have chosen to spend the next hour with us as we hear more about nonviolence, key to a Laudato Si future. Please give us a second to inform those who need translation how to access the interpretation service.
Si vous souhaitez une traduction en français, vous veuillez cliquer sur l'option de traduction ci-dessous. C'est un petit globe. Merci.
Si necesita una traducción al español, haga clic en el botón de interpretación del menú inferior y elija español. Gracias. The Catholic Nonviolence Initiative, CNI, is a project of Pax Christi International, the International Catholic Peace Movement. The goal of CNI is that the Catholic Church will invest its intellectual, pastoral, academic, diplomatic, and financial resources in developing and promoting nonviolent practices and strategies which can help lead the world away from perpetual violence and war. Sister Wamuyu Wachira, a member of the Loreto Sisters of Nairobi, Kenya, serves as co-president of Pax Christi International and a member of the CNI Executive Committee. Sister Wamuyu will begin our time together in prayer. So Wamuyu, please start.
Greetings of peace to you all. The following is an excerpt from the Canticle of Brother Sun and Sister Moon from St. Francis of Assisi. Most High, all powerful, all good Lord, all praise is yours. All glory, all honor, and all blessings.
Okay.
To you alone, Most High, do they belong. And no mortal lips are worthy to pronounce your name. Praise be you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Brother Sun, who is the day through whom you give us light. And he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor. Of you, Most High, he bears the likeness. Praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Moon and the stars. In the heavens, you have made them bright, precious, and fair. Praise be you, my Lord, through brothers, wind and air, and fair and stormy, or weather smooths, by which you cherish all that you have made. Praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Water, so useful, humble, precious, and pure. Praise be you, my Lord, through Brother Fire, through whom you light the night. And he is beautiful and playful and robust and strong. Praise be you, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us, producing varied fruits with colored flowers and herbs. Praise be you, my Lord, through those who grant pardon for love of you and bear sickness and trial. Blessed are those who endure in peace. By you, Most High, they will be crowned. Praise and bless my Lord, give him thanks, and serve him with great humility. Amen.
Thank you, Wamuyu, for starting our time together with prayer. I'd like to introduce some members of the CNI Steering Committee who are going to be speaking with us today. Many of you know Marie Dennis, who served for many years as co-president of Pax Christi International. She now serves as senior advisor to Pax Christi's Secretary General. We have Sister Sheila Kinsey and Father Amado Picardal, who serve as co-secretaries of the JPIC Commission for USG in Rome, Italy. And we have Ken Butigan, who is a longtime community organizer and teaches peace studies at DePaul University in California. So thank you all for being with us. I'm going to start with Marie. Let me just take some of these spotlights away. And Marie, can you start our conversation today with what you see as the connection between Laudato Si and nonviolence?
Sure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Laudato Si has helped us to see that the cry of the earth and the suffering of the creatures living on this planet are intrinsically interconnected with human violence, including the cultural violence of indifference and domination, the direct violence of war and militarization, and the economic violence of destructive, unaccountable extractive projects or unsustainable consumption-driven lifestyles. Unless we're able to make a transition from a paradigm where violence is the norm to a paradigm that understands and embraces nonviolence, we believe that we will never be able to approximate the beautiful vision of Laudato Si.
Marie, can you give us a few examples, please?
Sure. Beginning with war, preparations for war, and other military activities that are fossil fuel intensive. They exacerbate climate change and have rendered vast areas of planet Earth uninhabitable and unproductive. The discovery of landmines and unexploded ordnance, for example, decades after the end of a war. The pollution and habitat destruction from battles and military exercises, the loss of forests and diverse species of plants and animals, all point to the long-term environmental consequences of conventional warfare, and even a limited exchange of nuclear weapons would have a devastating impact on the climate and on countless species, including humans, obviously. Unless we learn how to interrupt violence and transform potentially violent conflict, we will continue to inflict enormous damage on our common home and its inhabitants. Another example, many communities where Pax Christi is present have been heavily affected by the activities of companies exploiting natural resources, including oil, gas, gold, silver, iron, copper, and tin, as well as by other large-scale development projects. The UN Environmental Program is clear that greenhouse gas emissions, the contamination and excessive consumption of water, pollution of the earth and vital ecosystems, and biodiversity loss are just some of the ecological threats from extractive projects. We've learned from our member organizations in Mexico, Peru, Guatemala, El Salvador, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Philippines, and in many other countries, that organized people committed to nonviolence are the most effective protectors of the land, the water, the trees, and other creatures, and the clearest and most creative proponents of sustainable lifestyles. But for their resistance, they are being criminalized, threatened, even killed. To heal the earth, we believe that we have to address the multiple violences evident in this cycle: excessive consumerism, destructive extraction, attacks on earth protectors. Nonviolence is a process for nurturing a conversion to right relationships, both among humans and between humans and the rest of the natural world. If you will, from the old way of domination and exploitation toward a civilization of love, which Pope Francis speaks about in Laudato Si. Nonviolence is a way of life. It's a global ethic, and it is a spectrum of proven effective strategies for social and environmental transformation. In other words, nonviolence is much more than a political strategy. It is a spirituality through which we see and interpret life, a set of virtues and principles for personal and social change, a global ethic. We believe that nonviolence is an essential part of caring for our common home.
Thank you very much, Marie, for sharing that with us. We do have a brief video to show, which we hope provides some understanding about the critical situation we are experiencing and how some communities have responded. What we are going to share is a short clip about Berta Cáceres, a Honduran environmental activist who was assassinated in 2016 because of her work. She received the Goldman Environmental Prize, a prestigious award, in 2015, and this video was produced at that time. And if you bear with me, I am going to share my screen and pull up the video.
No sound.
Hey, Judy, I think that you have to share the sound from your computer. We can't hear anything.
I can hear.
Yeah, you would, but we can't.
You have to share it on the Zoom piece at the bottom.
You need to unmute yourself, Judy.
Yep, it's as simple as just don't mute your own mic.
Judy,
You
when
all
you
are
share it,
brilliant.
there's a little video-enabled tick box at the bottom.
You're brilliant.
Hydro. During the military coup in 2009, the Honduran government awarded concessions for 47 dams to power hundreds of new mining projects. Chinese engineering giant Sino-Hydro joined with the Honduran company to build a dam near Rio Blanco. The Acosarca Dam would impact hundreds of people.
This was a violation of indigenous rights from the start, because the National Congress granted a concession without providing free, prior, and informed consent.
We had beans planted right where I'm standing, but when the company came in, they ran their tractors over the fields, destroying everything. We got mad. Then we decided to organize ourselves with COPIN.
COPIN, an indigenous rights organization, co-founded by Berta, organized the Lenca people around their internationally recognized rights.
In more than 150 indigenous assemblies, our community decided that it did not want that hydroelectric dam.
Berta filed complaints with the Honduran government and organized peaceful protests in the nation's capital. As her visibility increased, she became a target for the government.
We denounced this dam and were threatened with smear campaigns, imprisonment, and murder. But nobody heard our voices until we set up a roadblock to take back control of our territory.
For well over a year, the Lenca maintained the roadblock, withstanding harassment and violent attacks. Tragically, Rio Blanco community leader Tomas Garcia was shot by the Honduran military at a peaceful protest.
Seeing this man murdered, the community became indignant, forcing a confrontation. The company was told that they had to get out. Así se fue sin oído de Rio Blanco. And that is how Sinohydro left Rio Blanco. But it cost us in blood.
Sinohydro terminated its contract, citing ongoing community resistance. The World Bank later withdrew its funding over concerns about human rights violations.
Podrían agredirla, que pueden matarla incluso, como han querido hacerlo. They can attack her. They can even kill her, as they have tried. But her life transcends this moment in time. This struggle is a symbol of community resistance that inspires people across Honduras and around the world.
No podemos ser ingenuos ante ese poder. Cuando iniciamos la lucha de Río Blanco,
when we started the fight for Rio Blanco, I would go into the river and I could feel what the river was telling me. I knew it was going to be difficult, but I also knew we were going to triumph because the river told me so.
For outstanding environmental achievement in South and Central America, the 2015 Goldman Environmental Prize is awarded to Berta Cáceres, Rio Blanco, Honduras.
So that was just a profoundly moving example of a community that has, with a deal of creativity and commitment, and too often sacrifice, has done what is necessary to protect the earth. And as we know, why we're here today, the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development has launched a new program for various institutions within the church to begin a 7-year journey to total sustainability in the spirit of Laudato Si. And we've asked Sister Sheila Kinsey to explain more about the Laudato Si platform and its process. So, Sister Sheila.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm very glad to be here with you. And really, this Laudato Si Action platform, really being spearheaded by the Dicastery, needs to take in all of this. So what we had just seen before with what happened in Honduras and what Marie has shared, this needs to be part of what we're folding in to this Laudato Si Action platform. It's a real Kairos moment. It's a jubilee for the earth and for all of us living here, as well as the whole cosmos. It's for all of humanity and all of God's creatures. And we invite everyone to be serious about this, the urgency of this situation, that it needs an immediate and a holistic and a unified response at all levels. At the local, regional, and international level, we need to be working together. And we need to be able to honor the lives of those who have suffered and have gone before us. We're standing on their shoulders, and we want to make it worthwhile for their lives. So in this message from Pope Francis about this Laudato Si Action platform, he's really calling us to a conversion, an ecological conversion, dealing with the environment and dealing with social concerns. We need to put them together for transformation. So never before in our church have we promoted such a transformation on such a large scale method. Initiation that's going to extend over this decade. We're hoping for 7 years to really ask each of our members of our church and our connections to really live our faith in a way that helps make a difference in our world. So this Laudato Si Action platform, coming out of this anniversary year, which we have been focusing on the needs of the earth and the needs of the poor, covers 7 areas. Now we're going to notice it's biblical. So we have 777. So we want to know the context out of which we are really seeing ourselves moving forward. So we're listening, connecting, we're inspiring each other to make this movement together. And the areas that we look at are the cry of the earth, listening to that cry of the earth, listening to the cry of the poor, looking at our economic situation, a simple, sustainable lifestyle, what kind of education is necessary for ecological conversion, and how is this shown in our spirituality, and the necessariness of the community involvement for networking and for advocacy. We're standing shoulder to shoulder to the north and the south and finding ways that we are indeed connecting with one another. And this platform is organized into 7 sectors, again, 7, dealing with families, parishes, schools, universities, hospitals and healthcare, business and farms, and religious orders. So we are finding ways to really interconnect in areas that we have some sort of lived realities, and how can we work together? So it's up to each of us, the individual, the community, and the institution, to discern how we are called to participate in this Laudato Si time. Laudato Si will be a place where people can go. We're putting together a website to find support, to find a means of discernment, and there's commitment processes to this ongoing development. For some people, this will be a beginning, and for others, it will be a refresher. For others, it will be an extension of what they're already committed themselves to doing. The important thing, as is noted, that we are in this together for an ecological conversion that is both personal and community. We're in communion together with God, with one another, and with all of creation. So this is intended to cover 7 years to discern, discover, and dedicate ourselves to an ecological vocation and living Laudato Si every day. As Pope Francis reminds us, all of us can cooperate as instruments of God for the care of creation, each according to his or her own culture, experience, involvement, and talents.
Thank you very much, Sheila. One of the sectors we know is vowed religious life. So can you just speak briefly to the connection with nonviolence and Laudato Si and vowed religious life?
So the congregations of men and women religious have coordinated our efforts to realize this vision of Laudato Si and the action plan through a project called Sowing Hope for the Planet. And through this, we are supporting one another through media opportunities, websites, webinars, videos, sharing our experiences about religious in our various communities. And we were asked to make a public commitment to the work for a sustainable ecology and commit ourselves to a plan moving through the 7 goals, which were just mentioned, and to network with others. So it's developing communities then in light of our own congregational charisms, of the gospel message out of which we have formed our constitutions, and to bring that forward in light of the goals of Laudato Si. So the first year, there's going to be a soft launch coming up on the 25th of May, and we're going to move then to the 4th to see how many will be willing to engage and reflect on how they can move forward with this commitment. I'd like to say, though, in terms of nonviolence, which is really integral to this whole process, and it's a methodology that is really active in the See, Judge, and Act methodology we ordinarily say for justice and peace and care for the integrity of creation. And these values: respect, honesty, justice, and nurturing wholesome relationships. And Pope Francis is so fond of saying we do things in the small way, but we always expand it to our political arenas or wherever we are. So these are the kind of the 4 values that in my work with this platform, I try to bring it forward. So just respect, courtesy, listening to one another, listening to where the heart is speaking. Even if we don't agree with each other, we respect the person for what their opportunity to speak. It needs to be a non-threatening place where people are not feeling intimidated from what they're doing. And this includes when we engage with our political leaders. We honor their different perspectives, but we do some background, and we know where our different ones are coming from as well. And we really are clear about our agendas and what we hope to accomplish when we meet with one another and we talk with one another. So that's respect. Honesty then is really dealing with credible, verifiable, and current information. So it's really important that we look at the whole picture. That's really incredible, that we can able to speak from the truth of the reality, which is more important than just ideals. Then we have to be honest into our own selves, find our passion. What is it that speaks to us and gives us energy and the honesty of our own lives, and bring that forward. And we also have to be honest and ask forgiveness of what we've done to the environment and how we need to heal it, and what we need to do that it can have rights for its own sustainability in life. And in justice, we look at accountability and responsibility. How do we negotiate in fair dialogue? Pope Francis is asking us to do that. We listen to one another's stories, and we use nonviolent communication skills so that we can get in areas of conflict and try to address things in a timely manner and make things workable for us, find ways that we can be unified in the midst of conflict. And then wholesome relationships. How can we develop trust that what we're doing is trustworthy and that we have the resources needed to carry our message forward? So that responsibility and reliability is a message that we can give to others. So we can move towards a deeper and a wider practice of nonviolence by focusing on simple values, which prepare us to be attentive to the larger issues. We can create a nonviolent lifestyle by responding in peace. We can develop prayerful reflections, which challenge us to be attentive to those who are in need. And by consciously attending to being persons of nonviolence and compassion, we prepare ourselves to be responsible to God's grace in the moment. The practice of nonviolence moves us forward then with our message of peace. Thank you.
Sheila, thanks so much. That was really wonderful. We're so grateful you were with us today. We know that you have a leadership role with the Laudato Si Action platform, and you've been really committed and busy with that, especially, and this is a big week for you all.
Oh my gosh,
and,
yes.
We also just want to congratulate you. We know that you have a new role as a member of the board of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development, which is a great honor and a big responsibility, and we're really thrilled that you have that position now. So
thank you.
So I'm gonna spotlight your colleague, Father Amado, Father Pix, and because we've been so grateful to have his participation with the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative in the last year or so since he's come to Rome, and we know he has a great deal of personal experience from the Philippines. And Pix, we are so grateful you're here today to share with us the experience that you've had in the Philippines with your community. So please go right ahead.
Hi, peace to all. In Laudato Si number 179, Pope Francis urges action by groups and communities that will put pressure on governments to develop more rigorous regulations, procedures, and controls that will stop the damage to the environment. I wish to share with you our experience of organizing and mobilizing local communities in the use of nonviolence to stop deforestation in the Philippines. From 1987 to 1989, I was a member of the Redemptorist Mission team that evangelized and formed basic ecclesial communities in San Fernando, Bukidnon, Philippines. The main problem that the people faced was the deforestation due to the logging operation in the area. It changed the weather patterns, which affected their farming. There were long droughts, and there were also flooding when the heavy rains came. As a result of our evangelization program focusing on the care for the earth, the communities decided to take action using nonviolent methods, which we taught them. The people barricaded the roads and stopped the logging trucks from going through. While celebrating the Eucharist in the barricade, the military came and violently dispersed them, but they did not fight back. The military attempted to arrest the parish priest, but they released him when the people demanded that they be arrested too. This incident was reported in the newspapers, and the president of the Philippines at the time, Corazon Aquino, ordered a suspension of the logging operations in the area. Not contented with a suspension order, the communities resumed their barricades a year later, and this time in the national highway at the provincial capital in Malaybalay, joined by other communities from neighboring parishes and supported by the bishop, the Dato clergy, and nuns. They demanded a total logging ban in the whole province. The army came and assured them that they will not be dispersed as long as the people avoid the use of violence. Finally, the president of the Philippines sent the secretary of the Department of Natural Resources to dialogue with them. The government finally gave in to their demands and asked the communities to assist in the reforestation program. Later, the government imposed a total log ban in the whole country, and the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines came out with a pastoral letter on the ecology, praising the people of San Fernando as a sign of hope. As we celebrate Laudato Si week, let us remember that the seventh goal of Laudato Si Action Platform is community involvement and participatory action. The experience of San Fernando shows us how nonviolence is an integral part of this goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amado, for sharing that powerful story of solidarity. A community, it seems like there was some similarity with the community in Honduras, some creativity and commitment. And fortunately, you had the support of the local church too. And we're so grateful you were with us to share this story today. So we know that these examples of communities working together to protect their homes, to use nonviolence as an effective strategy, these are stories that can be shared around the world. And so I'm going to ask Ken to speak a bit about this. So Ken, how can the Laudato Si action plan help translate the vision for a new world into reality?
Well, thank you, Judy, and everyone who's participating around the world. Your question is the critical question. And with regards to it, I've been thinking recently about what Pope Francis said to 3 French activists he met with in the Vatican a couple of months ago. He gave them direct marching orders when he said, start a revolution, shake things up. The world is deaf. You have to open its ears. Start a revolution, shake things up. The world is deaf. You have to open its ears. As we reflect, as we're doing today on this journey to a Laudato Si future, I think it's important to grasp the full import of what it's all about. As the Pope said at the beginning of the pandemic, we're at a turning point. We can't go back to the unjust normal of 2019 and every year before it. We must construct the future, he says. To achieve any of this, big things must happen. We must start a revolution and shake things up. But how do we do this? How can we start a revolution? In fact, what do we mean by a revolution? Of course, there's the need to dismantle the structures and systems that persistently reinforce the disparities that are a matter of life and death. But even this is not enough. Below the structures is a paradigm that feeds racism and all the other isms. It's not enough to imagine new structures and policies. We need another paradigm, a new operating system, a paradigm showing us a more excellent way, as St. Paul said. We need a shift like what we hear in 2 Corinthians. The new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. For this to be successful, for a new true creation, where the needs of all are met, where the dignity of all is safeguarded, where our fragile planet is given a second chance, the old ways of violence will not work. As we've been stressing in this webinar, active and liberating and powerful nonviolence is a sure way to foster this new world. It's a way we will navigate these challenges and open up a new set of possibilities for the earth and its teeming inhabitants. As we've heard in this webinar, nonviolence is a way of life, nurturing right relationships throughout the whole earth community, a spirituality, a global ethic, and a spectrum of proven effective actions and strategies and methods for ecological integrity, social justice, and peace. It's at the heart of the gospel and the birthright of all humanity. And Pope Francis has advanced nonviolence throughout his papacy. Foundational to nurturing a Laudato Si world, and thus central to the Laudato Si action platform that's being launched this week, is unleashing the power of active, creative, and transformative nonviolence. Achieving durable care for our common home and for the justice, equity, dignity, and peace on which it depends will require an unprecedented global movement and innumerable local campaigns to mobilize the people power needed to challenge and dismantle the massive unjust structures that threaten the earth. Neither violent strategies nor passive wishful thinking will build and sustain this movement of movements and the new order it seeks to nurture. As rigorous research has shown, active nonviolence, the love that struggles for justice with fierce determination but without violence, is our best hope for achieving this long-term shift. Nonviolence defeats injustice and not people. This monumental transformation can be nurtured in the following ways. First, a global spiritual awakening to the transforming power of nonviolent struggle, the kind of struggle we heard that Berta in Honduras and Amado in the Philippines have bet their lives on. The transforming power of nonviolent struggle, action, and reconciliation. Second, massive education and training in nonviolent principles and methods. What if the church really did call on the thousands of local churches, religious orders, seminaries, ministries to integrate active and creative nonviolent power into what they're doing? Third, support for a long-term nonviolent movement for profound structural change, that we as church, that we as the human community engage the practices that have been emerged, especially over the last century, but that Jesus 2,000 years ago called us to. Fourth, steps for reweaving the web of life by nurturing nonviolent relationships in our lives and our world, as Sister Sheila emphasized. And finally, calling on civil society everywhere to choose a nonviolent future by increasingly embracing the nonviolent life today. All the sectors in the Laudato Si action platform can and must play a crucial role in advancing each of these. Fortunately, we're living in a time when the power of nonviolent movements has been revealed as never before. People around the world are using active nonviolence and grassroots campaigns to build more democratic societies, to champion human rights, to challenge racism and sexism and white supremacy, to struggle for economic justice, and to safeguard the planet. Recent quantitative research has also demonstrated that nonviolent strategies are twice as effective as violent ones. Now, facing the glaring structural injustice that has been revealed by COVID, we have a choice: to slide back into the unjust normal or to join the greatest social movement in human history that's coming. It's what we'll need to make this possible. This movement will not appear by magic. It requires hard work and acting our way into thinking. It will be deeply nonviolent, saying no to injustice and yes to the humanity of all, including the humanity of our opponents. The 7-year journey of the Laudato Si action platform will play an historic role in the emergence of a new global nonviolent future. Let's all join this embracing, nonviolent movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. That was great. I am going to add your fellow panelists, and we're going to have a little panel here, I think. I would like to ask the four of you, maybe you can take turns waving your hand. I think maybe we can unmute you all. Let me just ask those of you, if you have any thoughts about how, for all of this big thinking about nonviolence and care for the planet and the very ambitious plan for the Laudato Si action platform, doesn't it need a conversion of hearts? And how do we achieve that conversion of hearts?
Well, maybe just to start an answer, I think that in many ways, the goals of the Laudato Si action platform point us very much in the right direction. I think we have been reminded repeatedly by Pope Francis, but also by the journeys of so many communities, communities of faith and religious communities and others, to listen to the cry of the earth and to listen to the cry of those who are most marginalized in our world. It seems to me that a conversion of heart begins there, that we need to be present to and listening to those who are most affected by the destructiveness of human activities on the planet, and to the violences that we see in the world. And then I guess the other piece that I would lift up is also direction given to us within the Laudato Si goals, and that is community. I think that we are much more likely to really experience a conversion of heart when we do that, listening and sharing the journey in communities. There are lots of different kinds of communities, but just as a place to start the conversation, that's where I would go, to the listening to the earth, listening to the most marginalized in our world, and walking together in community.
Thanks, Marie. Go ahead, Amado, Father Pix.
Yeah, in 1987, when we went to San Fernando Bukidnon, we didn't have any idea about all this ecology and environment. But I realized that conversion of heart begins with being with people, living among them, and looking at what is happening and listening to them. All of this, because it all started there. We have to do research. I remember we had to read Sean McDonough's book, Care for the Earth, and we have to do a lot of study because people are asking, is this the will of God? There's a lot of drought and all this. So we have to constantly listen to them and listen to the word of God, especially the way he intends to care for the earth. And so it's really a say, judge, act method, to see what was happening, to listen to the cry of the people, and from there to reflect on the word of God, what is the word of God is telling us about our response. And then it moves to what should we do. And when we decided what we should do, then we said we have to make sure that we have to do it in a non-violent way, because there are also guerrillas nearby, they were offering assistance. So I think all of these things, it's so important that we have to be immersed in communities, have to look at what is happening and listen to them. That's where conversion takes place,
Pope Francis says it's not about just amassing information, but we need education and inspiration, and taking that and finding out what it is that we can do to make a change. So it's a personal responsibility to look around and see, what can I do? I mean, we're at a crisis. We are admitting that we're between two fires, and we have to begin to say, hey, what can we do about it? We have a responsibility to act. And even when we start with just one little thing in the discerning process, and taking it on, even if it's less transportation or you're walking more. Well, what are you doing while you're walking? What are you looking at? How are you praising God? You know, so it's all about that integration. That's a part of it. And then, you know, then God moves us forward. You know, as Pix say, you know, we talk about it, we go where the people are, where our hearts are, and then we listen to where the Spirit, because we really feel this Laudato Si action platform, and this is about the movement of the Spirit. And then we want to be a part of it, and we want to be in it and together as a community, really. So that's where I think.
I'm so grateful that that Pix is on this call. I, as a baby activist many years ago, was so inspired by the people power movement and the revolutionary people power movement in the Philippines. And that really identified there's an alternative to passivity on the one hand and violence on the other. And it required a conversion from the belief in violence and passivity to a belief in this third way that Jesus calls us to, but we haven't always heard in the churches. And what happened there, as many of us know this story, a number of Catholic sisters went to the Cardinal Sin in the Philippines and said, we need training, we need formation. And they brought great trainers, Hildegard and John Gosmeyer, and they went through a 3-day process, and it was a process of conversion and transformation. And that led to hundreds of trainings across the country. And that led to the preparation for eventually the leadership who had been trained to bring 2 million people into the streets. And 4 days later, Ferdinand Marcos was on a plane out of the country, when before they thought it would take 10 years, 10,000 deaths, and an armed struggle. And one of the learnings there was that the church needed to find ways to bring that formation. They hadn't gotten it in seminaries. They hadn't gotten it in their formation. So in this moment, inspired by you, Pix, and all the people who were involved in that struggle, and many other struggles since then, I believe that the church has a real opportunity to share that formation, to open the space for that kind of conversion of heart, but also that equipping with the tools that we need going forward, so that we're going into a future that's not a violent future, but one that is exercising this power.
Thank you very much, Ken, for bringing that up. Because remember, San Fernando experience happened after the people power. 1987 to 19, it was a 2-year struggle, but what actually helped us was the spirit of people power. That's why that even our mass, we said this is going to be a people power, peaceful action to defend the forest. That's how we sold it, you know. And I think that spirit, you know, that it's possible, you know, to kick out a dictator through nonviolence, and it's possible to defend our forest through nonviolence, but it has to be an action from below, grassroots action.
Thank you all. One other question to consider is, how does, can any of you talk more about how nonviolence impacts our relationship with the planet? Little shift.
Maybe I'll jump in again. I think that obviously is a huge question, but what I was thinking about as I was even listening to the experience in the Philippines, and were two things. One is, it seems to me that as we begin to open ourselves, Pope Francis talks about an ecological conversion. I think, you know, a conversion to nonviolence, an ecological conversion, it seems to me have everything to do with relationships, with our relationships with other people, and our relationships with the earth, with the rest of nature. And I am reminded of thinking about the beauty that we encounter along the way, that that as we open ourselves to letting go of our instinct for domination, which I think is what sort of the Western or the industrialized world has assumed that nature was just there for us to exploit and use for our benefit. And I think once we begin to move beyond that, to think about a different kind of relationship, that what we also encounter is beauty. I think particularly of the, so many indigenous communities speak about buen vivir, about a completely different understanding of the good life, if you will, than what is so often touted in our own US society or in the West as the good life. And I think that our openness to nonviolence and to ecological conversion come together to infect or deepen or gift our experience of life in a way that is very positive. And I think that on the one hand, we are absolutely pushing back the violence, but on the other hand, and this is the other hand of nonviolence, is we are creating and embracing and learning about something extraordinarily beautiful. And that's, I think, part of the journey.
I think contemplation is really important. It's hard to be destructive of something that you've come to value and seen as a part of yourself and that you care for. You know, instead of dominating, we need to be caring for creation. And really, Archbishop Bartholomew reminds us that really at the root of the problems of violence to one another and also creation, it's a spiritual one. You know, what are we doing with greed and envy and exploitation? And do we really think science and we're going to be able to solve all of our problems with a new technique? We have to look at some of our limitations. So it's all about a different perspective in terms of how we can really look at what we need to do as terms of caring, and then realizing that nature has rights. You know, it needs to be able to protect, you know, to continue to flourish. You know, and that the animals need to be able to have a safe place and all of those things. So it's putting us then in the ring around other creation and not putting us at the center and in terms of moving out in that direction. So it's a whole different mindset that we're being asked to really care about all of God's creation. And as Pope Francis says, you know, if you love God, then you love everything that God did. And so he gets us into that contemplative space about being in love with God, and then as a result, what that means in our everyday life.
Go ahead, Bix.
Yeah, you know, the vision of Pope Francis that we human beings are created for communion with God, with one another, and with creation. You know, when I was interacting with indigenous peoples, you know, I realized that this is at the core of how they see creation. For example, the cutting of trees. They don't just cut trees, you know. They have to ask permission from the tree. You know, we need just, you know, and it's a deep reverence for nature, for creation. You know, so I think it's so important for us that to have this deep reverence for nature. You know, with animals, you know what, I'm glad that now how we relate even with dogs and cats, you know, that we cannot be cruel to them, but can we also extend that to others? You know, sometimes, you know, I feel said, are you going to eat the meat or pork? I said, if there are brothers, you know, do we eat our brothers, you know, or sisters? But again, this requires a radical rethinking of how we look at nature, you know, that we cannot just exploit them, you know. So it requires a new relationship, you know, when we speak about to be in communion with them, you know. Otherwise, you know, if we just look at them from a utilitarian concept, you know, then that's where we're destroying our planet.
Ken, go ahead.
Well, I like the fact that Sister Sheila, you mentioned the Kairos moment. It's the moment of of crisis and opportunity. And every day we feel that crisis, but also that opportunity more and more deeply. And the way I look at it is there's a paradigm of violence and oppression and domination. And there's an emergent new paradigm that Jesus called us to. It was new 2,000 years ago, and it's new today, which is one of interconnectedness and relationship with all. We're at a real crossroads, a time to say how in our own lives, in our own communities, and then across the planet, how can we make the nonviolent shift that really says how are we going to have that interconnectedness and then bet our lives on it the way Pix and Berta have done that. And so I guess I'm taking away from this moment a call to myself and maybe to all of us to think about how we are going to be agents of transformation, healing, and catalysts for moving in this nonviolent shift of mainstreaming nonviolence, of bringing it alive in all these steps over the next 7 years and 70 years. And I'm so appreciative of all the nonviolent movements that are happening around the world. We can learn from them, and we can also be part of them.
Thank you very much. This has been a really great sharing, and our hour has really started. It's just flown by. An hour isn't really enough to dive into this. So I want to just thank all of you, Marie and Sheila, Father Pix and Ken, and I want to thank my colleague Erin, who's been helping behind the scenes. Rose Berger is our chat mistress. She's always really good with sharing resources via chat. So I'm gonna just pull up just a list of just some websites that hopefully people will find useful. And you can find the Laudato Si Action Plan goals on the Laudato Si website. And there's a tiny URL there, the Gospel Nonviolence Laudato Si paper, which was primarily prepared by Marie and Ken. The website for the Nonviolence Initiative, nonviolencejustpeace.net, paxchristi.net. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to email nonviolence@paxchristi.net. We are on the social media sites, so please find us there. This webinar is being live streamed onto YouTube and will be saved on YouTube, so you can find it there. And I'm gonna stop sharing. And thanks again to our interpreters. We're gonna close right now. We have a brief video. It's from the Global Catholic Climate Movement, our friends at GCCM. And it's it's about a minute and a half, a little more than a minute and a half, a prayer that was, I think, it's attributed to Pope Francis, and it's just a lovely prayer for Laudato Si. So I'll play this video, and then feel free to excuse yourself as you wish, and thank you all again. Happy Laudato Si week.
Yeah, for sure.
All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor in the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. Pour out upon us the power of the 5 years later, be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
You.